You walk into a room you have never been in, and your entire body reacts like you've stood in this exact spot before. Not a vague feeling, a specific one. You could almost tell me what happens next, and then it's gone, as fast as it arrived. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's happening in your brain during that moment. And there's a second, stranger version of this feeling almost nobody's heard of that we're saving for last. This feeling has a name almost everyone knows: déjà vu, French for already seen. Today, we're not doing the internet version of this. No glitch in the simulation, no parallel universe theories. We're covering what neuroscientists actually discovered, including a strange historical accident during real brain surgery, the modern research that explains why this happens, and the honest answer to something a lot of you have privately wondered. What if you actually dreamed this moment first? Stick around to the end. There's an opposite version of déjà vu that's genuinely stranger than the feeling itself, and almost nobody knows it has a name. Here's the first surprising fact. This is not rare. Most people experience déjà vu at some point, and for a lot of people, it happens somewhat regularly. It's common enough that people have been trying to name and explain it for a very long time. The term itself is older than you'd think. A French researcher named Émile Boirac first used the phrase déjà vu back in the 1870s, over 150 years ago, after noticing the exact sensation happened to himself and needing a word for it. But here's something Boirac had no way of knowing back then, that modern research has since confirmed. Déjà vu happens far more to teenagers and young adults than to older adults. It actually tends to fade as you get older. That's backwards from almost every other memory-related quirk. Most memory problems get worse with age. This one gets rarer, which is a strong hint that whatever is happening isn't a flaw. It might be a sign your memory system is working, just briefly getting its wires crossed. Here's where the real science starts, and it begins with an operating room, not a lab. In the mid-20th century, a neurosurgeon was operating on patients with severe epilepsy. Because the brain itself feels no pain, some of these surgeries were done while patients were still conscious, allowing surgeons to gently stimulate different areas of the brain with a small electrode and ask the patient, in real time, what they felt. When the surgeons stimulated a specific region deep in the temporal lobe, some patients suddenly reported an intense, vivid feeling of déjà vu, as if they'd lived that exact moment before, right there on the operating table. That was the first real clue. Déjà vu wasn't just a poetic feeling. It was traceable to an actual physical location inside the brain. Fast forward to today, and researchers have built a much clearer picture of what's actually going on. Modern memory researchers describe your brain as running two separate systems side by side. One checks familiarity, a fast, gut-level sense of, "I know this." The other handles recollection, the slower process of actually retrieving the specific memory that explains why you know it. Normally, these two move together. You feel familiarity, and a split second later, your brain hands you the memory that justifies it. Déjà vu appears to be what happens when familiarity fires and recollection comes up completely empty. You get the feeling of having lived this moment, with no actual memory attached to it. To test this, researchers built two virtual scenes, completely different decor, but the exact same room shape and doorway placement. Participants explored the first scene. Later, without knowing the two were connected, they explored the second. Many felt a real, unmistakable wave of déjà vu the moment they walked in, even though nothing about the second scene consciously reminded them of the first. That's the proof. It couldn't have been the room itself, it looked completely different. It was the matching shape, slipping past conscious memory and setting off the familiarity system on its own. Here's the part that should feel reassuring instead of unsettling. This isn't your brain glitching. It's a sign your brain is constantly, quietly cross-checking new experiences against a lifetime of stored ones, at a speed you never consciously notice. Déjà vu is simply the one moment that mismatch becomes visible to you. Every other time, your two systems agree, and you feel nothing unusual at all. So why does this fade as you get older? One leading idea is that this mismatch depends on a brain region still maturing through your teens and 20s. As it matures, your memory checking system may simply get more efficient at telling real matches from false alarms. To be fair, this is still an active area of research, not a finished case. But it's consistent with something else researchers found. People who travel more or take in a lot of new media tend to report more déjà vu, likely because they're feeding their brain more raw material that could partially match something else they've seen. Now, some of you watching haven't just felt, "I've been here before." You felt something more specific. "I dreamed this exact moment." Here's the honest answer. Some researchers propose that certain déjà vu episodes might genuinely be triggered by a fragment of an actual forgotten dream, your brain briefly recognizing a real detail it stored while you were asleep, without consciously remembering the dream itself. To be fully honest with you, this is difficult to test scientifically, because we can't reliably verify what someone actually dreamed after the fact. It's a real, credible idea, just one that's harder to confirm than the room layout research we just covered. One more fair note before the ending. For the overwhelming majority of people, occasional déjà vu is completely normal. But very frequent or unusually intense episodes, especially paired with other symptoms, have in rare cases been linked to certain neurological conditions, including some forms of epilepsy, consistent with exactly how scientists first found this connection. Now here's what we save for last, because most people have never heard this has a name. It's called jamais vu, French for never seen. It's the exact opposite of déjà vu, a moment where something completely familiar suddenly feels bizarre, foreign, wrong, like you're seeing it for the very first time. It happens to people staring at a single word until it stops looking like a real word at all. It happens looking at your own face in a mirror for too long until it briefly feels like a stranger's face. Your own home, your own name, your own reflection, all capable of suddenly feeling completely unfamiliar for a few unsettling seconds. If déjà vu is your familiarity system firing with no memory behind it, jamais vu looks like the opposite failure. Your brain briefly failing to register something as familiar, even though it obviously is. Same two systems, same brain. Two completely opposite ways they can misfire. So here's what's actually happening the next time déjà vu hits you. Your brain isn't malfunctioning, and it isn't showing you a memory from another life. If you want to actually catch it in the act, try this. Instead of chasing the specific memory that isn't there, notice the shape of the space around you, the layout of the furniture, where the doorway sits, the angle of the room. The research suggests it's the shape triggering the false familiarity, not the content. That's the closest thing to catching your own brain mid-glitch. Tell me which one you've actually experienced. Déjà vu, jamais vu, or both, and what it felt like. This is just one glitch in how your mind works. There are plenty more coming in future videos. Subscribe to catch them.